Hi, this is Gina from Her Cosmic Crown. I'm a tropical Vedic astrologer, and today we are going to talk about one of the most fascinating topics, which is compatibility based on Vedic astrology techniques. I used to think that compatibility was just comprised of looking at the sexual chemistry between two people, looking at shared values, but there's much more to compatibility than just that. It's essential that a couple has compatible moons. Now, why do we look at the moon and not the sun? Because I often hear people say, oh, this person is a Taurus and this person's a Leo. That's semi-compatible. Well, they're looking at sun signs, but the moon is actually more important. The moon has to do with who we are as an individual. It's the hidden parts of ourselves. The moon has to do with our perception of the world. It's the manas, it's the mind. And the moon as well, it's such a mysterious planet. It's the social planet. It's how we relate to others. It's also how we feel comfortable. How we feel most comfortable, because it has to do with our environment. It has to do with how we get nurtured, how we get our needs met. So the moon represents our likes and dislikes. It represents what we're comfortable with, what stimulation we would like to take in, the kind of foods we like. And it's pivotal that partners get their needs met in similar ways, because that's how they can feel good. And we want to feel good. The moon is all about feeling good and happiness. So when a couple is just completely different, they're not gonna like a lot of the same things, and the wavelength between them, they're gonna be on a different page. You know, I don't know if you've ever met anyone and you're just not really vibing with them, but you try to make it work because they have a great resume, you know, they have a car, a house, all the things that you like, but it's just not vibing. So there needs to be more to us. The fascinating thing about astrology is that it can show us exactly where we might have hiccups with a person, where we might get stuck with a person, and you know, where things might just flow. Basically, the compatibility between two people shows how we get our inner needs met. And will being with this other person, will we be able to get our needs met with them? So, looking at moon compatibility doesn't just have to do with looking at the signs of the moon, which is important, but there's another aspect to it, and I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's called nakshatras, which is based on 27 signs of the moon. So the sun has its 12 signs, but the moon has 27 signs in Vedic astrology. And there's a whole compatibility system based on the nakshatras. The 27 nakshatras, which are also known as the lunar mansions, are said to be the wives of the moon. And the moon in Vedic astrology is a male, and all the 27 nakshatras are female. And so the moon goes into each nakshatra for about 24 hours, and it stays in each house. And the moon is very fickle. It's kind of flexible. It changes its mind. So it doesn't stay in each house that long. You know, like I said, only 24 hours or so. And so it'll go into each sign and it'll visit each wife. And he has more of his favorite wives, but no nakshatra by itself is bad. All of our planets in our chart fall in a nakshatra. But the most important one is the nakshatra of the moon. So wherever our moon is, we want to look at the sign that it's in, but also the nakshatra sign. And that's really important. And that's just a whole nother facet to our personality that we would want to uncover. But is the nakshatra that our moon is in, is that compatible to another person's nakshatra moon? That is something that we look at in Vedic astrology. Because I don't have the time to go over each technique that is involved in this compatibility system, I'll just give you 3 techniques here. So we use what's called the Ashta Kutas. These are basically 8 different factors for comparing the moons between partners, and each one contains a number of points. The total amount of points is 36. Very rarely do couples have the full 36 points, but a couple needs at least 20 points in order to be considered compatible. Now, there are some exceptions to this rule that can really help the couple in their relationship. The more compatibility points that a couple has, it's going to show that they're on the same wavelength, that the energy is going to flow very well between them. Based on lunar compatibility techniques, I'm going to go over 3 brief descriptions. So, number 1, each nakshatra has an animalistic characteristic to it. And this is known as the yoni, okay? So yoni meaning the sexual energy that we all have. So each nakshatra has sexual energy. And the sexual energy also relates to our animalistic behavior. It's kind of that fight or flight response. So when we're confronted by an emergency, how do we react to that thing? We can look at the nakshatra that the moon is in, and we can look at the animal that that corresponds to that nakshatra, and we can see how a person will react. We want a couple to be, you know, at least somewhat compatible when it comes to their yoni compatibility, right? And if a couple is completely incompatible in terms of their how they react to emergency situations, it can actually be kind of a hindrance in the relationship. It can kind of break the relationship a little bit. So for example, let's say a child dies, you know, that's a huge crisis. That's a huge tragedy in a person's life. And if 2 people react in a similar way, say one person reacts by retreating, you know, they need to stay at home, and that's their way of grieving or reacting to that, and their partner reacts to it in the same way or a similar way, that can really bond them. That tragedy can make them stronger. But we also hear that, you know, tragedies can push couples away, and sometimes that's because they react differently to it. Like one person's retreating and another person's cracking jokes, and that just does not go hand in hand, and they're not going to see eye to eye when it comes to that tragedy. And unfortunately, intense situations, even if they have strong compatibility in other areas, that could be the breaking point when a couple cannot see eye to eye when it comes to dealing with emergency situations. The second compatibility technique that I'm going to go over today is called the Graha Matram, and this shows the planetary friendship between the moons. And so based on the sign that the moon is in and the lord of that sign, we could see how compatible they are. So planets are either friends or neutral or enemies towards one another, and this is based on the Parashara technique. When a couple's moons are friendly towards each other, these people are going to want to spend a lot of time together. They're going to be on a similar wavelength. They're going to understand each other. They're going to want to do similar things as each other, and it's really great. For example, friendly moons help the couple be interested in similar things, such as both wanting to be adventurous or both prioritizing decorating the home, or really into spirituality or finances. The third one that I'm going to go over is called the Nadi or Vein Kuta, which shows the temperament based on the 3 humors. So we're talking wind, fire, and water. So each nakshatra is either wind, fire, or water, and it may seem counterintuitive, but we don't want those to be the same between the couple. So if both people have water, for example, as the temperament based on their nakshatra, if they're both water, then there's too much water, right? We want it to be maybe water and air. We want it to be water and wind, or fire and wind, or something like that. We don't want them to be the same, because what happens? Well, if we have 2 water nakshatra signs, then there's just too much emotion, and the woman may gain weight after she gets married. She's like, why am I overweight after I got married? You know, I used to be so thin. So there could be just too much water. There could be just too much emotion going on in that relationship. And this is one of the most more serious ones. We don't want the nadi to be to have the same temperament. If there's too much fire, if they both have fire, there could be a lot of anger issues, especially for the person with the more masculine energy. They could just have too much anger, and you're just wondering, why are they so angry? And it's because, you know, when we are with another person, we're stimulating each other in a unique way, right? And you notice that when you're with different people, you react differently. They bring something out of you, right? And, you know, I can think of one person that I would hang out with, and I would just act so goofy around them. Like, not goofy in a cute way, but just like saying things that was like word vomit. And I'm like, why am I talking like this around this person? We stimulate each other in different ways. And it's important to get a compatibility reading, I think, because it can be more clear. Like, why is this happening in our relationship? You know, having too much wind, maybe there's too much intestinal stuff going on, too much gas, bloating, and things like that. So just even having an understanding what is happening between the two people in a relationship can be so enlightening. Like I said, this was just a brief description. There is so much more to compatibility according to the Vedic astrology system. And if you're interested in getting a Vedic astrology compatibility reading, I highly suggest it. It's fun and enlightening and insightful. So you can visit my website to book a reading at hercosmiccrown.com. I'll have the link in the description, and I will see you in the next video. Take care. Bye.